Ever notice how sometimes the best villains in movies make you think, you know what? They've actually got a point. Well, what if I told you some of your favorite movie bad guys weren't just making good points, they were completely right?
I'd say you're a moron.
You suck, you jackass.
Howdy, and thanks for clicking on this video to see what this jackass has to say. I appreciate you. So today, I wanted to dive into Hollywood's dirty little secret. Sometimes the writers accidentally make the villain the smartest person in the entire room. See, Hollywood has this weird obsession with creating sympathetic villains. Oh, look at that poor misunderstood bad guy with the tragic backstory.
She's the bad guy, right?
But here's the thing, sometimes they go so far making these villains relatable that they accidentally turn them into the most reasonable character in the entire story. The 10 villains I'm covering today weren't just misunderstood, they were straight up correct. Their goals, totally justified. Their complaints, 100% valid. The only thing villainous about them was their approach. You know, like the, I'm going to solve this completely legitimate problem by checks notes. Murdering everyone. Classic villain move. It's like that moment when you're watching a movie with friends and you blurt out, wait, am I the only one rooting for the bad guy here? Don't worry, today you're not alone. So grab your morally ambiguous popcorn, hit that subscribe button, and if you haven't already, let's break down 10 movie villains who were absolutely right, even if their methods were completely bonkers. I want to put a caveat before I truly dive into this. I know a lot of people are going to tell me why Thanos should be on this list, but I feel like that's on every list ever that's made on this particular topic. And frankly, I think he gets way too much credit for being right. Sure, bro talks a big game about saving the universe, but his plan is basically cosmic laziness. Snap half of everything away instead of, using the Infinity Gauntlet to create more resources or actually fix things. It's like having a magic wish and using it to delete people instead of solving the actual problem. Plus, not every planet was struggling. Some were doing just fine until Thanos showed up with his purple chin and bad ideas. At the end of the day, I think he's less a misunderstood genius and more a space tyrant with a flair for dramatic solutions. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents there. Now let's get on with the damn list. Coming in at number 10 is Ken from B-Movie. I know this isn't on most people's lists, I get it, but having seen this movie a zillion times due to having little kids, the way Ken's depicted in this flick has always bothered me. He gets a bad rap for all the wrong reasons. Ken is constantly painted as the villain, but if you really look at the story, he's just a regular guy trying to live a normal life with his girlfriend Vanessa. Suddenly, he's competing for her attention with a talking bee. Not only is that bizarre, but Ken is also allergic to bees. I don't know about you, but I generally try to avoid things that could, kill me at all costs. I mean, imagine just sitting in your home and the thing you're allergic to is flying around, chatting up your girlfriend, and even sharing food at your table. His frustration in this? Totally justified. Ken's reactions being upset trying to get rid of Barry aren't evil. They're the desperate moves of someone who's literally fighting for his relationship and his health. He's not plotting world domination or trying to hunt anyone for fun. He just wants a little peace, some yogurt nights, and maybe to not die from anaphylactic shock. And yet this movie makes him out to be the bad guy while everyone else just seems to roll with that insanity. He really feels like the only sane person in a world that's completely lost its damn mind. And frankly, I think he deserves way more sympathy than he actually gets. At number 9 is Ed Rooney, the Dean of Students at Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So this dude totally gets painted as the villain, but let's be honest, he was actually right to go after Ferris. Now, the actor Jeffrey Jones, that's a whole different can of worms that we're not going to open today. Anyway, Ferris wasn't just an innocent kid skipping a day. He was a serial truant who lied to his parents, faked illnesses, and even dragged his friends into his schemes. Rooney's job is literally to uphold school rules and make sure students like Ferris don't get away with breaking them, especially since Ferris's antics set a terrible example for the rest of the student body. Rooney's frustration is understandable. He's dealing with a charming troublemaker who keeps making him look like a jackass. All Rooney wanted for Ferris was to finally face some consequences, which, let's be real, is pretty reasonable for someone in charge of discipline. The problem though, Rooney's methods go way off the rails, breaking into Ferris's house and sneaking around like a cartoon villain. And it's definitely not in the school administrator handbook. But at the end of the day, Rooney wasn't evil. He was just a guy trying, maybe a little too hard, to do his job in the face of Ferris's over-the-top mischief. If anything, he's the only adult who saw through Ferris's act and tried to hold him accountable. Just maybe next time, stick to phone calls and leave the B&E to the professionals. Coming in at number 8 is Lord Cutler Beckett from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, mainly at World's End. So this dude gets a lot of hate, and trust me, I totally get it. He's got a smarmy personality and a totally punchable face. But if you're able to look past his cold demeanor and questionable methods, he actually has a pretty solid point. The Caribbean was overrun by pirates. Smuggling, theft, and outright chaos were the norm, making life dangerous for ordinary people and crippling legitimate trade. Beckett, as head of the East India Trading Company, was just trying to bring order to the lawless seas and protect commerce, which, let's face it, is what any reasonable authority would want to do. His plan to wipe out piracy wasn't just about profit, it was about stabilizing the region and making it safe for honest merchants and settlers. The pirates he was up against were hardly innocent. They pillaged, murdered, and caused mayhem wherever they went. Beckett's strategy to force the pirate lords into the open by creating a crisis was ruthless, yeah, but it was also clever and effective from a law enforcement perspective. Now, mass executions and denying people fair trials is definitely not cool, and that's where Beckett really crosses the line, but at the end of the day, his goal to end piracy and bring peace to the seas wasn't villainous at all. He just needed a little less tyranny and a lot more due process. At number 7 is Ozymandias from Watchmen. At least in the film's context, this dude may have actually been right. In the graphic novel, well, that's a different story altogether. So the world was teetering on the brink of nuclear war, with the US and Soviet Union ready to wipe out humanity in a matter of minutes. Ozymandias saw the writing on the wall and realized that unless something drastic happened, everyone was doomed. So he orchestrated a fake attack using Dr. Manhattan's energy signature, uniting the world against a common enemy and instantly ending the Cold War standoff. His plan sure was horrifying. Millions died in New York, but it worked. The world stepped back from the edge and peace was achieved, at least for a time. Ozymandias wasn't motivated by greed or power. He genuinely believed sacrificing a few to save billions was the only way forward. And the movie even suggests he succeeded where everyone else failed. While his methods were indeed monstrous, his logic was airtight. He did what no one else was willing to do to save the world, making him the ultimate anti-villain. In the end, Ozymandias proves that sometimes being right means making the hardest and darkest choices imaginable. At number 6 is Syndrome from The Incredibles. So this dude's often seen as the over-the-top villain, but if you think about his core ideas, he was really onto something. So his main point that relying on a handful of special superheroes to save the world isn't fair or sustainable, and he's absolutely right. Syndrome believed that if everyone had access to advanced technology, then everyone could be super, not just a lucky few born with powers. In a way, he was all about leveling the playing field and breaking down the elitist superhero club. His tech genius could have revolutionized the world, and he proved that you don't need superpowers to make a difference. You just need innovation and determination. The real problem, though, his bitterness and ego got in the way, turning his good idea into a revenge plot. Instead of sharing his inventions, he used them for personal glory and chaos, risking lots of innocent lives. So while I think his methods were wild and his grudge was unhealthy, Syndrome was completely right. Greatness should be reserved for a chosen few. He just needed a little less megalomania and a lot more teamwork. Coming in at number 5 is General Hummel from The Rock. Personally, I think General Hummel in The Rock is one of the most justified villains you'll ever see on screen. He's not some mustache-twirling maniac, he's actually a decorated Marine who's fed up with the government's refusal to honor and compensate families of soldiers who died on covert missions. Hummel tried every legal and diplomatic route for years and only took drastic action when he was completely out of options. His demands weren't for personal gain, he just wanted justice for his fallen men and their loved ones. Even when he takes hostages and threatens to launch chemical weapons, it's clear the dude's deeply conflicted. He goes out of his way to avoid unnecessary violence, and ultimately, he never intended to hurt innocent people at all. Hummel's plan was a bluff to force the government's hand, and when things spiraled out of control, he tries to prevent disaster, proving that he's truly a man of honor, not a true villain. In the end, Hummel's actions highlight a real injustice, and his moral struggle makes him not just understandable, but downright sympathetic. Magneto from X-Men comes in at number 4. So in all fairness, Marvel does this really great job of crafting a sympathetic villain. But the one that really sticks out to me anyway is Magneto. Often cast as the villain, when you look at homie's reasoning, you realize he's actually got a point. His entire worldview is shaped by surviving the Holocaust and witnessing firsthand how people in power can turn on minorities out of fear and ignorance. In the X-Men movies, Magneto sees history repeating itself. Mutants are hunted, discriminated against, and even targeted targeted for extermination. While Professor X dreams of peaceful coexistence, Magneto knows that hope alone doesn't stop hate. He's not just fighting for mutant rights, he's fighting for mutant survival, believing that if mutants don't stand up and defend themselves, they'll be wiped out completely. Magneto's push for a safe haven for mutants and his refusal to test humanity aren't just paranoia, they're a response to real threats and violence. He's a protector at heart, willing to do whatever it takes to keep his people safe, even if his methods cross the line. So while his actions can be extreme, Magneto's core message is right. When a group is targeted and or oppressed, waiting for acceptance isn't always an option. Sometimes you just have to fight back. At number 3, Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. So this cat's definitely portrayed as the classic Disney villain, arrogant, self-absorbed, and let's be honest, not winning any awards for respecting boundaries. But if you take a step back, there's actually a sliver of logic from his actions. From Gaston's perspective, there's a dangerous, mysterious beast living in a castle deep in the woods, and that beast has imprisoned Belle, the woman he's totally infatuated with. To the average villager, the beast is a terrifying, unknown creature who could pose a real threat to the town. Gaston rallies the townspeople not just out of jealousy, but because he genuinely believes he's protecting Belle and everyone else from a monster. Sure, his methods like trying to blackmail Belle and locking up her father are way over the line, and his motivation is tangled up in ego and possessiveness, but the core of his crusade totally makes sense. If you heard a monster was holding someone you knew captive, wouldn't you want to do something? Gaston's fatal flaw is that he never stops to question if the beast is actually dangerous, but his initial instinct to protect his community isn't as villainous as it seems. He just needed a lot less bravado and a lot more listening skills, I guess. Number 2 is Count Dooku from Attack of the Clones. Played by the legendary Christopher Lee, Dooku's painted as the villain, but when you actually dig into his motives, I think he was right about a lot. So Dooku saw that the Galactic Republic was rotten with corruption, and he wasn't wrong. The Senate was already under secret control of Darth Sidious, a Sith Lord manipulating events from the shadows. He tried to warn Obi-Wan, even revealing that hundreds of senators were compromised, but the Jedi were too blinded by their own dogma and hubris to listen. Dooku's disillusionment with the Jedi Order came from witnessing their hypocrisy and inability to see the Republic's decay, and he genuinely believed that drastic change was needed for the galaxy to survive. While his methods, like, starting a war and working with Sidious, were absolutely villainous, his core message was spot on. The Republic was broken and the Jedi were too arrogant to see it. In a galaxy full of black and white morality, Dooku stands out as a tragic figure who saw the truth before anyone else, even if he chose the wrong way to fix it. And finally, at number 1 is one of cinema's most unforgettable villains, William D-Fens Foster from Falling Down. D-Fens is one of those rare movie characters who's both the protagonist and, in many ways, the villain. If you look at Bro's breakdown, it's actually pretty understandable. Here's a guy who did everything society told him to. He worked hard, built missiles to protect America, played by the rules, and tried to be a good family man. Then, through no fault of his own, he's chewed up and spit out by a system that no longer values him. He loses his job, his family, and his sense of purpose. As a husband and father, I can totally relate. On the day the movie takes place, he's bombarded by everyday frustrations, price gouging, bureaucratic nonsense, rude strangers, and a world that feels increasingly alien and unfair. His journey is a rage-fueled quest for fairness, not charity, lashing out at rising prices, corporate indifference, and the little indignities that grind people down every day. He's not wrong to be angry. His complaints about the system are totally spot on, and his desire to just get home from his daughter's birthday is heartbreakingly human. The brilliance of Foster's character is that he voices the simmering frustration so many people feel but never act on. Yes, he takes things way too far, and his methods spiral into violence, but at his core, Foster's a mirror for anyone who's ever thought, why the hell does the world have to be this unfair? In the end, he's not evil, just a desperate man pushed past his breaking point by a society that's forgotten how to care for its own. That's what I think makes his story so compelling and relatable. And there you have it, 10 so-called villains who, when you really break it down, were actually making a lot of sense. Sure, their methods were a little let's say, dramatic, but the reasons, pretty relatable. Maybe next time you watch your favorite movie, you'll find yourself rooting for the bad guy just a little bit, or at least understanding where they're coming from. Which of these villains do you think was most justified? Did I miss any of your favorites? Honestly, I'd love to hear your take. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe if you like more deep dives into the stories and characters you thought you knew. I can't thank you enough for watching, and remember, sometimes the line between hero and villain is just a matter of perspective. As always, the opinions in this video are mine and mine alone, but what the hell do I know? I'm but a mere jackass. I'll try to do better next time. Catch you later, friends.
That talks too much. I'm just a jackass of all trades. Don't know shit. I keep on talking, acting like I'm so legit. From politics to sports, I'll spout.